Hey folks, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whenever you're watching this video, this is Doug with News and Views by Doug. And today is Monday, June 28th. And this is where I discuss world events, politics, and pretty much anything else I feel like talking about. I hope that you would like and subscribe, leave a comment. I'll try to respond. And, let's get started. So, I've been talking about a lot of things lately because there's just been so much going on in the world. But today I'm going to start off on something kind of light. I just found it really weird and and it's interesting to me. So, over the last year or two, I don't know if you folks know it, but a Japanese corporation actually owns the 7-Eleven Corporation, which was once owned by Americans in Texas. And they've been bringing a lot of their Japanese products over to the 7-Elevens. And these are anything from chips to candies to just, we don't really know what the hell they are because they're all with the Japanese branding and the Japanese language. And that's fine. But you see like 20 different styles of Doritos. And they're all different flavors and who knows exactly what they are. But today I went to go 7-Eleven to get some coffee, and I saw this. So I decided to buy it just to try it because this is Lay's, and apparently it's made for the World Cup. And it says Argentinian style steak with chimichurri flavored and other natural flavors, made with real potatoes. Well, thank God, because I've never seen a fake potato. But I like Argentine style steaks. We have a couple of restaurants here where they bring the meat to your table and they cut thin slices. And I'm probably going to screw up the name, but my favorite meat from there is picanha. And it's just amazing. The flavor just melts in your mouth. But a potato chip that tastes like steak. And then chimichurri is kind of a salsa that you can put on meat. Okay, so I tried the chip. It in no way, shape, or form tastes like meat. Tastes like a steak. The chimichurri couldn't pick that out. It's got a weird flavor. I really am not a fan of what I tasted, and that's why the bag's about half full. Gave a couple of chips to my pups, and they ate them because they'll eat anything. So over the weekend, the war was back on in the Persian Gulf. Iran launched attacks on cargo and oil tankers, cargo ships, and they closed the Straits of Hormuz. And the U.S. retaliated, and then Iran launched drones towards Bahrain and Kuwait. And the U.S. again retaliated with massive bombings. They said yesterday that truce is over. The U.S. is not going to be sitting down with Iran. And as of this morning, they're going to talk again. And they're supposed to be meeting tomorrow in Doha, Qatar, to discuss it. But one of the biggest issues is that the IRGC, the military regime that runs Iran, they basically have replaced the civilians in the negotiating committee. And basically, it's because the Ayatollah, whoever the hell that is nowadays, had said that there were several red lines that could not be crossed. And that was nuclear weapons. That was the closing the Straits of Hormuz with them charging tolls, service fees for the ships to go through. And then the conflict with Hezbollah versus Israel in Lebanon. And so they replaced them because the civilian negotiators were all negotiating on that and crossed the invisible red line. So who knows, who's going to be talking and what are they going to be talking about? But there are reports coming out now that there's a lot of infighting within the government and the IRGC supporters. And there's also reports of the Kurds fighting in northeastern Iran against the IRGC, and people are beginning to protest and riot again. now that the internet is back up. But the infighting with the government, you've got the hardliners versus the others, and we'll see what happens. So, we've had some major earthquakes hit around the world lately. As a matter of fact, there was one this morning off Oregon that they said was I think they said a 5.6, but no tsunamis, and as far as we know, no damage or injuries. But Venezuela got hit late last week, and it was bad. The first one was a 7.5, maybe a 7.8. The second one they said was a 7.2. And there are currently thousands upon thousands of people that are missing. And over 1,500 have been found dead. And they've just got thousands of injuries. Well, the United States and Mexico and probably other countries have been rushing rescue and aid to Venezuela. And they are finding people in the rubble. But the problem is, while they're searching in these buildings that are just collapsing, another earthquake hit this morning, a 4.9, and there hasn't been any reports of more buildings coming down because they're barely standing up. But one thing was brought up about the construction of these buildings. So many of them just collapsed, pancaked, and many of them were standing next to each other and they pancaked in the same direction. And it wasn't that they came collapsing down. They literally went sideways. And now the question is the construction. Was it shoddy? Did it meet code, if Venezuela has codes? And it's just bad. So, let's pray for the people of Venezuela and around the world, because there's been major earthquakes everywhere.
The ground is shaking again. 5 days after Venezuela's deadliest earthquake, another aftershock has struck. The death toll is still climbing. Nearly 69,000 people remain unaccounted for. The best chance of finding survivors has already passed. But for thousands of rescuers, the search is far from over. A fresh tremor jolted Caracas before dawn on June 29th, rattling a capital still reeling from the devastating twin quakes that hit Venezuela last week. The US Geological Survey measured the aftershock at magnitude 4.6, striking just north of the city at a depth of around 10 kilometers, shortly after 7 a.m. local time. The original disaster struck on June 24th, when two earthquakes measuring 7.2 and 7.5 hit within a minute of each other off the Caribbean coast, among the most powerful to strike the country in over a century. 5 days on, the death toll has climbed to almost 1,500.
In today's report, we must state that the death toll has reached 1,450 people, women and men, who lost their lives as a result of the most brutal natural catastrophe our country has suffered in its history.
Venezuelan officials say close to 69,000 people remain unaccounted for. Disaster experts note that the odds of finding survivors fall sharply once 72 hours have passed. That window closed 2 days ago, yet crews are still digging through the rubble of La Guaira, the coastal state hit hardest and the focus of round-the-clock search operations.
Let us hope with God's favor we manage to find my wife and my pets, because it has been 4 days that we have not known anything about her, and well, we never lose hope.
Acting President Delcy Rodriguez says electricity has now been restored to La Guaira, though heavy machinery remains in short supply, leaving the government dependent on help from abroad. That help has poured in. 24 countries have sent over 500 tons of relief supplies, nearly 90 canine search units, and more than 2,700 rescue personnel. China has pledged around $14.7 million in aid, while the United States has deployed military personnel to help reopen a key seaport and expand airport capacity.
Suave, suave, suave.
Suave, Javier, suave.
Suave, Javier. Hermano, agárrese, agárrese.
Ya va, que aquí están sacando la niña, ya va, no me va mucho a la pared arriba, no me va mucho a la pared arriba.
A la pared arriba. Vaya que no se monte nadie arriba.
¡Ey, no se vaya a montar nadie en arriba, no se vaya a venir que está sacando a la bebé! Por favor. Pero dile. Mano, dile que está sacando a la niña, no se vaya.
Ya va, mami, ya va.
Cuidado se cae, hermano, cuidado se cae, cuidado se cae esa pared arriba, mano.
Hermano, un sincero.
Dile que tú ya habías montado.
Ya, mami, ya. Ahí va, buenísimo. Ahí va, perfecto. Ahí va. Vamos a sacar ya. El esfuerzo aguanta para sacar.
¡Excelente, no jodas! ¿Por qué es esto?
Dale.
Ahí.
Adelante, equipo. El llamado equipo es al que ingresó. Le paso a Metro del Salvador.
Ok, en cuenta.
Y si me esperas un momento mejor en lo que trato de hacer un acceso para
Hola,
llegar
hola.
directamente a ti y
Teniente
poderte ayudar.
Valladares. Necesito saber cómo está la situación ahí en el lugar para contribuir a ciertos detalles y ver el avance del rescate.
Ok, en cuenta. Es lo siguiente. Ahí está el compañero dándole la dosificación del suero.
Retíralo un poquito,
Y
unos centímetros.
hay que descubrir una parte, se
poquito
puede decir,
más.
grande,
Porque se ha quedado
para
atorado.
descubrir el cuerpo, hacer la
Un
extracción
poquito más.
y de ahí llegar hasta donde está
Sí.
la víctima.
Tape, sí, yo vi. Ya,
Ok,
espérate.
sí
Ah, yo
hay.
estoy haciendo un video. Toma.
Ajá, ¿de cuánto es ese radio que está ahí más o menos? Para explicarle a tu jefe, estaba preguntando.
¿De
poco más.
cuánto estamos hablando
Ahí,
del radio? Y si la condición del radio puede expandirse o se mantiene lo mismo.
Que se le están cayendo piedras, Hernán.
Pregunta si está lesionado.
Hernán, ¿te encuentras lesionado?
Desde hace rato está pidiendo agua, pero ahorita me está diciendo que se le cayó parte de la estructura.
¿Qué parte de la estructura o fue cuando empezamos a hacer la penetración?
Hernán, la estructura cayó recientemente.
No, dile que pregunte cuando hicieron los trabajos.
No, está cayendo paulatinamente.
Ok.
Parte de la estructura está cayendo
¿Y
paulatinamente.
está lastimado?
Necesita agua.
Sí, lo
Pues
sé,
sí,
pero...
no podemos
Dile
accesar
que
a
sí,
él.
¿qué tan cerca nos escucha?
Hernán, ¿qué tan cerca nos escuchas? ¿Arriba o abajo?
Ok, aquí se le hidró el...
¿Hay alguien con vida? ¡Te invito a un golpe!
¡Hay alguien!
¡Silencio!
¡Coño, silencio!
¡Ey, ey!
¡Silencio!
¡Silencio, por favor!
¡Hay alguien!
But one opinion that I heard that was interesting, it's not fully vetted, but they're saying that because of the oil production in Venezuela, that may have caused these earthquakes because the oil production or extracting the oil out of the ground was right near the fault line that ran through Caracas. Well, there was no other oil production going through the rest of the world where there has been some major earthquakes in the last week or two. But it was said that in the state of Oklahoma in the United States, that since there's been oil well drilling and the extraction of the oil, that when they take out the oil, it's being replaced with water. The oil companies extract the oil and then immediately send water in. And they're saying that that may be causing stresses on the faults because now they're saying that Oklahoma, on average, has more 3.0 earthquakes than California, which, you know, we were the earthquake capital of the United States. So I found that interesting. But again, you know, there's no oil production in Japan. There's none in Afghanistan and the parts of Iran that have been hit. I'm not too sure about Indonesia, but I know there's none in the Southern Pacific where major earthquakes have hit lately. And I don't believe that the Philippines have oil production. But, you know, I'm not an expert on that. So another thing that comes with the earth is the heat. Europe has been experiencing a major heat wave for over a week now. And they're saying that in Europe, there are thousands of people that have died from the heat. And we know in France alone, they've had close to 100 people just drown. People are jumping into the rivers to cool off, and they either underestimate the currents or they can't swim. So just last week, they were saying that over 100 people have died from just drowning to escape the heat. So it just keeps getting worse and worse. Now, also in Germany this morning, there was a mass shooting, and the German police are reporting up to 6 people are dead. They may be kids because it happened at a youth center. And the police have arrested 2 people, the shooter and an accomplice. And they believe that it wasn't political or religious. It was a personal grudge that set off the shooter.
Gegen 12:10 Uhr heute am Montagmittag wurden der Polizei starke Schüsse gemeldet, ist ein Streifenwagen zum Einsatzort gefahren und dort mussten die Kolleginnen und Kollegen leider mehrere Tote feststellen. Der mutmaßliche Schütze ist bereits kurze Zeit nach der Tat festgenommen worden. 2 weitere Personen befinden sich in polizeilichen Maßnahmen. Das heißt also, sind bei der Polizei, werden vernommen und gegebenenfalls einer Spurensicherung unterzogen.
But they captured him, but we're waiting to find out, was it kids that were killed? Was it adults? Was it a mixture? But they're saying 6 killed right now, and they haven't said how many wounded. So also, stick with the European term or issues. In England, the Islamists are taking over. It's getting to the point where people have lost their freedom of speech in the United Kingdom, and people are being jailed for giving opinions online, like I do. And they're being jailed for speaking up against the Muslims. Wow. So Keir Starmer, who was the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, resigned last week. And he'll remain in office until they find the replacement or bring in the replacement. But it's coming out to one of the reasons he may have resigned, besides being a traitor to his country, is that he was the director of public prosecutions many years ago. And a report came out a couple of days before he announced his, that he was that he was resigning. The report came out about these Pakistani grooming rape gangs. And over the last 15 years, that they had raped up to 250,000 or more white girls in the United Kingdom. And we're talking little girls, from preteen to young teens. And that they were just grabbing them and raping them. And the police and the government did nothing about it. And one of the reasons that was given, and this came from the Starmer office, was that the Pakistanis didn't understand our culture. And they had not yet assimilated or integrated into the Western culture. So they were being given a pass to rape these little girls. And I talked about it yesterday, and I was pissed off when I was talking. Because, could that happen here in the United States? I'd like to say no, but who the hell knows? Well, what did Starmer do again today? He's trying to legalize Sharia law in the United Kingdom, where the Muslims can govern themselves. And then you got good old King Charles. He basically, he's supposed to be the head of the Church of England. And now he's saying that he is the leader of all faiths in the country. Something close to that. And he's betraying the Western people. He's betraying the Church of England. But you shouldn't be surprised. I mean, he betrayed his wife, Princess Diana, for that ugly bitch Camilla. I mean, the guy cheated on his beautiful wife for an old hag. And she's always been a hag. But Charles was in love with her.
All right, people, just when you couldn't make sense out of the brokenness of Britain, just when you couldn't wrap your head around one stupid decision after another by the British establishment, they somehow find a way to make it even harder. Or do they? Are they making it harder for us to understand, or they're actually making it simpler for us to understand that the people responsible behind the destruction of British society, its civil service, its politics, its social fabric, they are not interested in fixing Britain. They're actively destroying Britain on purpose. And the reverberations will be felt all across the West, not just the Anglosphere countries. They'll be felt here in Australia. They'll be felt in Canada, in New Zealand, and yes, even in America. I know Americans like to think of themselves as unique and different, but I'm sorry, we are all connected. The ideology and the people who are busy destroying Britain, they're hard at work here as well. In every single one of our great countries, they're all busy. Have a look at this. King Charles. By the way, I know there is a huge movement against the monarchy. There are a lot of people who call themselves anti-monarchists or something like that. I, as an outsider, have always looked at the royal family with somewhat reverence. Not necessarily, reverence is probably not the right word, but I've looked at it in a favorable way. I was a huge fan of Princess Diana. I remember in August 1997, it was August 1997, I was 13 years old. First, it was Mother Teresa who died, and then Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan. He died, and I was really sad at his death. And I remember even Princess Diana mentioned him, and then a few days later, Princess Diana died. And I kind of cried. I had a secret crush on her, like I was a 13-year-old boy. I remember getting really sad and upset, and I cried. And so, and then I looked at Prince William and Prince Harry. Harry's, I think, around my age. So, I didn't mind the royal family, but I don't think I can say the same thing now. Look at this. This is King Charles, yeah? Look at him. The royal family has just changed the monarchy's job description to include other religions as well. The king's official job, which used to be the defender of the Church of England, it's been updated to now protect faith within the multi-faith nation, whatever the hell that means. On the one hand, they've been chastising Christians and Christianity for years, for decades. They have literally introduced laws that are anti-Christian. Let's just talk about abortion, yeah? Regardless of what my position is on that, but I will point this out. I will point out this hypocrisy. Christians, for example, don't like abortion, okay? They don't like abortion. They think it's akin to murder, even if the fetus is 1 day old, yeah? But they had no problem in dismantling that claim of Christianity. They went ahead. I think abortion has been legal in Australia since the 70s. I think it's the same in the UK, 80s, 90s or whatever. In America, Roe v. Wade was just reversed, which had been around for many decades. But when it comes to rejecting Christianity or making laws against Christianity, they waste no time. But when it comes to other cultures like Islam, which are hostile, which are horrible, I would gladly live in a hardcore fundamentalist Christian society, not just this modern benign Christian society, in a hardcore radical Christian society. I would happily live under that than I would live under a moderate Muslim society. So this guy is now going to be defending, his job is now to protect faith within the multi-faith nation. Hijabs, burqas, niqabs, all of that. So let's have a look what it actually don't get along. They're antithetical to each other. Muslims view Christians as enemies because in their eyes, Christians attribute other gods to the one true God. So even though they claim to follow the same God, but they don't believe that Jesus is the Son of God. And they hate Christians for it. They hate it. That's why they say they hate them. Look at this.
It is from our religion that we have to hate them for the sake of Allah. We love what Allah loves, and on the opposite of that, we hate what Allah hates.
Let's not beat around the bush. We don't love each other. we're not on the same page. We are not friends. Does that make sense? We are enemies.
Very simple. No integration, no multiculturalism, no diversity, no tolerance. I got my own deen, you got your own deen. You got your democracy, we got our own sharia. You got your own free mixing, we got our own nikah. Own cheating within the marketplace, your own credit cards. We got our own economic system. We got our own foreign policy. We got our own deen.
That's what's going on in England. But, here was the funny thing. Here in the United States, the Democrats and the leftists, they hate Trump. They hate him with a passion. And he could walk out of the White House, look up at the sky and go, wow, the sky is blue and there's clouds. And these Democrats and leftists would call him a liar. No matter what he does. But here's the video showing you some of the past Democrats when it came to immigration. Here's the video.
In the budget I will present to you, we will try to do more to speed the deportation of illegal aliens who are arrested for crimes.
Senator Biden, yes or no, would you allow the cities to ignore the federal law?
No.
I think we got to have tough conditions. Tell people to come out of the shadows. If they've committed a crime, deport them. No questions asked.
Undocumented workers broke our immigration laws, and I believe that they must be held accountable, especially those who may be dangerous.
So here's proof that when they were in power, illegal immigration was bad. But then they turn it around when Trump is now president, and illegal immigration good, and how dare you, President Trump? How dare you want to get rid of all these refugees? You can't make this shit up. So the U.S. Supreme Court made a decision today, and in one of them, the Republicans lost in their challenge, and that was for the mail-in ballots. But what the Supreme Court did do was that mail-in ballots are going to be legal, but they cannot be counted if they don't meet the deadline of the end of the vote. So like most states in the United States vote on Tuesday. If that mail-in ballot doesn't have that Tuesday date stamp at the post office, it can't be counted. Now, those I can't even talk again. The ballots, they can be counted for up to 5 days after the official end of the voting. But they have to have that postmark on the envelope. If the postmark is on that Wednesday or later, those votes can't be counted. But we also know that there's a lot of voter fraud. And it's coming across more and more every day. California, Arizona, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Minnesota, where the Democrat machine threw away a lot of ballots that they believed were for the Republicans. And these people are now being prosecuted. So anyways, a lot of things happened today. I'm sure it's going to continue to happen. I hope you enjoy what I have to say. Agree or disagree, leave a comment. I'd love to know what you think. Please subscribe to the channel. And as I always say, please be safe. Take care of each other, especially your family and friends. Be aware of your surrounding areas. If you see something, say something. There's a lot of threats out there, and I think it's only going to get worse. So anyways, folks, I'm going to leave you with this quote. During the Revolutionary War, we had a battle with the British, and in one of them, John Paul Jones, the captain of the ship, the ship was going down. It didn't look good for the Americans, but he left with this famous quote. I have not yet begun to fight, when he was responding to a demand for surrender from the British captain. Well, the Americans rallied, and they took the British ship. the Bonham Richard. So anyways, folks, here's my quote for the day.